Most people think self-care means scented candles, bubble baths, or a weekend away from responsibilities. But the Stoics had a very different idea. For them, self-care wasn't indulgence, it was discipline. It wasn't escape, it was preparation. And it wasn't about feeling good in the moment. It was about becoming stronger for the moments that would inevitably test you. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, didn't have the luxury of running away from stress. He couldn't take a day off from being emperor. But in the pages of his journal, later known as Meditations, he reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That line alone is the purest definition of Stoic self-care. Because what is self-care, if not protecting your mind from chaos? What is self-care, if not learning to treat your body as a servant of virtue, instead of slave to impulse? What is self-care, if not training yourself to remain calm when the rest of the world is burning? When people talk about Stoicism, they often imagine cold detachment or emotionless endurance. But that's not true. Stoicism is not about rejecting comfort. It's about rejecting dependence on comfort. It's not about denying pleasure. It's about denying control of your soul to pleasure. The Stoics practice self-care every single day, not through luxury, but through clarity. Not through escape, but through courage. And that's what we're going to explore today. Because there are 10 timeless rules of Stoic self-care. 10 practices that Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus lived by. 10 rules that can help you not just survive the storms of life, but walk through them with peace, strength, and unshakable purpose. Think about the last time you felt drained. Maybe it was after a long day at work. Maybe it was from the endless noise of social media. Or maybe it was from battles you fight quietly inside your own head. Most of us try to fix that exhaustion by chasing comfort, scrolling endlessly, indulging in food, buying things we don't need, distracting ourselves until the fatigue fades. But the Stoics would call that false medicine. True self-care, they believed, is not about escaping life. It's about strengthening yourself to engage with life fully. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." And isn't that what most of us do? We waste our strength on the trivial, while neglecting the essential. Self-care in the Stoic tradition is not about pampering. It's about preservation. It's not about doing what feels good. It's about doing what makes you good. It's about caring for the one thing you truly control: your character, your choices, your mind. Because if your mind is weak, no amount of luxury will make you strong. But if your mind is strong, no misfortune can truly break you. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire during plagues, wars, and betrayals. And yet, in his writings, you'll find not self-pity, but reminders. If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining. That was his version of self-care, reminding himself daily of his own power, his own duty, his own calm. So what can we learn from them? 10 rules, 10 disciplines, 10 practices of self-care that are as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. Not soft escapes, but hard training. Not luxury, but liberty. Not comfort, but true strength. Rule number 1, guard your mind above all. The Stoics taught that the mind is the only thing we truly possess. Everything else, health, wealth, reputation, even the people we love, can be taken from us. But our thoughts, our choices, our perspective, these belong to us alone. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Yet how often do we surrender this strength? A stranger insults us, and we carry their words like poison. A mistake at work loops endlessly in our head. We scroll through headlines until our peace is replaced with fear. Instead of guarding the mind, we leave the gates wide open, letting anything wander in and take control. That is not self-care. That is negligence. Guarding the mind means treating it as a fortress. Epictetus said we should stand like a guard at the door of our thoughts. You wouldn't let thieves walk into your home. Why let destructive judgments, toxic comparisons, or endless distractions invade your mental space? This practice has 2 parts. First, control your inputs. What you read, watch, and listen shapes the world inside your head. Garbage in, garbage out. The Stoics filled their minds with philosophy, reminders of mortality, and lessons on virtue. We must be just as intentional. Surround yourself with wisdom, not noise. Second, discipline your judgments. The Stoics insisted it is not events that disturb us, but our opinions about them. That traffic jam isn't torture. Your impatience makes it so. That criticism isn't devastating. Your ego makes it so. Guarding your mind means pausing before judgment, asking, is this thought useful? Does it serve peace? Does it serve strength? Self-care isn't escape. It isn't numbing yourself with comfort. It is standing firm in chaos with a steady mind. Guard your mind as your most sacred responsibility, because it is. If you neglect it, nothing else will save you. But if you protect it, the world can throw storms, insults, and losses at you, and still, you will remain free. Because true self-care begins here, protecting the fortress of your mind. Rule number 2, master your desires. To the Stoics, one of the greatest dangers to self-care was not pain, but desire. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." The endless hunger for more wealth, more recognition, more pleasure, is what leaves us restless, unsatisfied, and exhausted. True self-care, they argued, is not indulging every craving, but mastering them. Think about how often desire dictates our choices. We reach for our phone because we crave stimulation. We overspend because we crave status. We overeat because we crave comfort. Each time, we hand over our freedom to impulses that do not serve us. The result? Regret, dependency, weakness, the very opposite of care. Epictetus compared uncontrolled desire to slavery. If you cannot resist the pull of pleasure, you are not free, you are owned by it. The Stoic path to self-care begins with restraint, not denial of all pleasure, but freedom from being ruled by it. Pleasure is acceptable when it is a choice, dangerous when it is a chain. In practice, mastering desire means training yourself to pause before acting. Ask, is this necessary? Will it make me better or worse? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to keep desires simple. Food to eat, clothes to wear, a bed to sleep. Anything beyond necessity must be judged carefully, because luxury can quickly turn into dependence. Self-care today is often sold as indulgence. Treat yourself, buy more, consume endlessly. But the Stoics would disagree. Real care is not about feeding desires, but about freeing yourself from them. Because when desire controls you, your peace is always at risk. The moment the world refuses you, you collapse. True freedom and true care comes when you no longer need what you crave. When you can enjoy pleasures without being owned by them. When you can let go without pain. When you can say no without feeling deprived. Master your desires, and you master yourself. That is the essence of Stoic self-care. Rule number 3, practice voluntary discomfort. At first glance, discomfort seems the opposite of self-care. Why would you make life harder when comfort is available? Yet the Stoics believe that deliberately facing hardship was the highest form of care for the self. Why? Because comfort makes us weak, and weakness is the enemy of peace. Seneca advised his students, set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself, is this the condition I feared? He was not punishing himself. He was preparing himself. By tasting poverty, he dissolved its terror. By rehearsing discomfort, he made himself free. Today, most of us avoid discomfort at all costs. We turn up the heat when it's cold, order food when we're hungry, scroll endlessly when we're bored. We confuse convenience with care. But what happens when life removes those comforts? When the job disappears, when the storm comes, when loneliness strikes? If we have never practiced discomfort, we collapse. Voluntary discomfort is training. It could be fasting for a day, sleeping on the floor, walking when you could drive, turning off devices, exposing yourself to silence instead of noise. Each act whispers to your mind, see, you are stronger than you think. You can live without. The benefit is not suffering itself, but the resilience it builds. Comfort lulls us into dependence. Discomfort restores independence. When you train your body and mind to endure less, you discover you need less. And when you need less, you fear less. Self-care, then, is not indulgence. It is preparation. It is equipping yourself for the day when comfort is unavailable, so you're not broken when reality bites. The Stoic does not seek pain, but welcomes small hardships as practice, so that when real hardship comes, they meet it calmly. Choose discomfort voluntarily, and you will no longer be its victim. That is true self-care. Rule number 4, keep a daily journal. For the Stoics, writing was not a luxury. It was a survival tool. Marcus Aurelius never intended meditations for publication. It was simply his journal, a place to confront his fears, remind himself of principles, and practice self-examination. Seneca, too, described reviewing each day before bed. When the lamp is taken out and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and measure my deeds. Why do they do this? Because the unexamined mind is chaotic. Left unchecked, thoughts grow tangled, anxieties multiply, and regrets linger. A journal becomes the mirror that reveals the truth. It is where you ask, did I act with virtue? Did I let anger master me? Did I waste time? Where did I do well? Where must I improve? In modern life, journaling is often portrayed as romantic. Fountain pens, poetic lines, perfect handwriting. But Stoic journaling was not art, it was medicine. It was about honesty, not beauty. You don't write to impress. You write to uncover. The journal is not for others. It is for you. Practical self-care begins here. A few minutes each morning to set intentions. A few minutes each evening to reflect. Write down what you fear, and it shrinks. Write down what you desire, and you see its absurdity. Write down what you're grateful for, and life feels fuller. A journal also creates continuity. On hard days, you can look back and realize you survived worse. On good days, you can remind yourself that fortune is fleeting. The pages become a map of your growth, evidence that you are becoming who you want to be. Without reflection, mistakes repeat. With reflection, mistakes become teachers. That is why journaling is not indulgence, but discipline. It is how you care for your inner world as faithfully as you care for your body. Guard 10 minutes a day for this practice. The return will be immense, because self-care is not escaping life, but understanding it, and no tool does this better than the daily journal. Rule number 5, value time more than money. If the Stoics had a currency more precious than gold, it was time. Seneca warned, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. He saw how people guard their money jealously, yet spend their hours carelessly, as though life were endless. To the Stoics, true self-care meant recognizing time as the only resource that, once spent, can never be replenished. Think about it. Money lost can be earned again, possessions broken can be replaced, reputation damaged can be rebuilt. But an hour wasted is gone forever. Every day, you are withdrawing from your life's account, and you cannot deposit back. That is why the Stoic takes time seriously. In practice, valuing time means becoming intentional about how you spend it. How many hours vanish to scrolling, gossip, trivial arguments, or tasks you never truly needed to do? Each of those hours is a piece of your life traded away for nothing. Real self-care means cutting away the unnecessary. Seneca advised living as if each day were your last, not in reckless indulgence, but in disciplined urgency. He asked, what if death called tomorrow? Would you regret how you spent today? The honest answer to that question reveals whether you are living or merely existing. This does not mean rushing frantically, but prioritizing what matters. Time spent on virtue, on learning, on loved ones, on purposeful work. That is well spent. Time given to distractions, vanity, or envy, that is wasted. The Stoic recognizes the difference and chooses wisely. Modern culture pushes us to chase money at the expense of time. But what good is wealth if it costs your days? What good is success if you never live long enough to enjoy it? The truly rich person, the Stoics argued, is the one who spends time well. Value time more than money, and you begin to live deliberately. That is Stoic self-care, protecting your most precious resource from theft, neglect, and waste. Because every wasted hour is not just time lost, it is life lost. Rule number 6, speak less, listen more. The Stoics believe the tongue is the most dangerous weapon. A sword cuts flesh, But careless words cut deeper. They wound relationships, reputations, and inner peace. Epictetus warned his students, "Be mostly silent, or speak only what is necessary, and in few words." To him, discipline of speech was a foundation of self-care, because once words leave your lips, they cannot be taken back. Think about how often unnecessary speech harms us. You argue in anger, only to regret it later. You gossip, and it comes back to poison your reputation. You explain endlessly, yet convince no one. All this drains the soul, steals energy, and destroys tranquility. If self-care is the protection of peace, then controlling speech is essential. Silence, to the Stoics, was not emptiness but strength. Seneca advised practicing periods of quiet to prove you can govern your tongue instead of being its servant. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself not to waste words on things that don't matter. He understood that dignity is preserved by restraint, and wisdom is gained through listening. Listening more than speaking is a form of humility. It acknowledges that others have knowledge you lack, experiences you can learn from, perspectives that expand your own. The proud man talks endlessly. The wise man listens. In listening, you not only understand others, you understand yourself. In practice, this rule means pausing before you speak. Ask, is it true? Is it necessary? Will it harm or help? If the answer fails, silence is the wiser choice. This pause creates space between impulse and action, the very space Stoicism teaches us to master. Self-care also means guarding energy. How many arguments consume your spirit, but change nothing? How many explanations are wasted on people unwilling to listen? The Stoic avoids these traps, speaking when words are purposeful, withholding them when silence is stronger. Modern culture rewards noise, the loudest opinions, constant posting, endless commentary. But true self-care often means stepping back, observing quietly, refusing to feed chaos with your voice. Speak less, listen more, and you discover peace in the space between words. Rule number 7, align actions with values. The Stoics believe that self-care is not what you feel, but how you live. If your daily actions contradict your deepest values, you create inner conflict. No bath, no vacation, no indulgence can heal that dissonance. Real care begins when what you do and what you believe are one and the same. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." In those few words lies a lifelong discipline. Talking about virtue is easy. Reading about Stoicism is easy. But unless those principles shape your choices, they are meaningless. The Stoic takes care of the self by living in alignment with virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. Consider how modern life often encourages hypocrisy. We say honesty matters, yet we tell small lies to protect ego. We say health matters, yet we neglect sleep and exercise. We say family matters, yet we waste hours scrolling instead of being present. Each contradiction chips away at our integrity, leaving guilt, anxiety, and restlessness. That is not self-care, it is self-betrayal. Alignment means asking each day, do my actions reflect my values? If I claim courage, am I facing fears? If I claim discipline, am I resisting impulses? If I claim kindness, am I treating others with dignity? Reflection through journaling, meditation, or even quiet thought helps expose the gaps between word and deed. Self-care here is not indulgent, but demanding. It requires sacrifice, saying no to temptations that break alignment, yes to duties that strengthen it. But the reward is priceless, peace of mind. Seneca wrote that the greatest wealth is a clear conscience. When your actions reflect your values, you sleep without regret and wake without shame. This rule also protects you from external pressure. The world constantly tries to pull you into conformity, urging you to act against your principles for approval, money, or comfort. A Stoic resists. To live aligned is to live free, because no one can buy or bully your integrity. Align actions with values, and you no longer need to escape yourself. That is the deepest form of Stoic self-care. Rule number 8, accept what you cannot control. The heart of Stoicism is the distinction between what is in our power and what is not. Epictetus began his Enchiridion with this truth. Some things are up to us, and some are not. To forget this is to invite endless suffering. To remember it is the highest act of self-care. Most of our exhaustion does not come from reality itself, but from fighting reality. We rage at the weather, resent delays, curse fate when illness arrives, or collapse when others disappoint us. In every case, the energy spent is wasted, because no amount of anger bends the world to our will. The Stoics understood this. They practiced serenity by releasing control over the uncontrollable. Self-care here is not passivity. It does not mean surrendering to laziness or shrugging at injustice. It means channeling effort only where it matters, on your judgments, choices, and actions. You cannot control the storm, but you can control how you sail. You cannot control another's cruelty, but you can control whether you meet it with virtue or vengeance. In practice, this rule begins with awareness. When difficulty arises, pause and ask, is this within my control? If yes, act with courage. If no, let it go. This simple filter saves endless energy otherwise wasted on resentment, worry, or complaint. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. He repeated this truth because forgetting it is easy, remembering it is freedom. Modern life constantly tempts us to chase control, controlling opinions, trends, even the future. But obsession only breeds anxiety. Peace comes not from mastery of the world, but mastery of response. The Stoic accepts fortunes, turns like a seasoned traveler accepts weather, with calm preparation, not resistance. Acceptance is not weakness. It is clarity. It is refusing to wound yourself twice, once from misfortune, and again from denial of it. True self-care is conserving strength for what can be shaped, not squandering it on what cannot. When you practice acceptance, burdens feel lighter, fears shrink, and peace grows. That is Stoic self-care, to live free from the chains of false control. Rule number 9, choose your company wisely. The Stoics understood that the people around us shape who we become. Seneca warned, associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. To him, friendships were not casual luxuries. They were moral influences. Self-care meant protecting the soul from corruption by keeping noble company. Think of how easily moods and habits spread. One anxious friend infects the calm. One gossiping colleague turns silence into noise. One indulgent companion normalizes excess. Without realizing, you absorb the values of those closest to you. The Stoics, aware of this, urged careful choice. They believed character is contagious. In practice, choosing company wisely does not mean avoiding everyone who is imperfect. We are all flawed. It means asking, does this relationship strengthen my virtue or weaken it? Does this person encourage wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, or drag me toward anger, greed, and vanity? True self-care is refusing to drink poison, even if offered by friends. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by flatterers and schemers, reminded himself daily not to imitate them. He could not always choose who stood in court, but he could choose whose influence entered his mind. Likewise, in modern life you cannot avoid coworkers, strangers, or critics, but you can decide who earns intimacy, whose words you take seriously, whose presence you invite into your inner circle. Seneca also emphasized reciprocity. Seek those you can learn from, but also those you can uplift. Friendship, in the Stoic sense, is not using others for comfort. It is mutual growth and virtue. To care for yourself includes caring for those you walk beside. Many confuse self-care with isolation, cutting everyone off. Stoics rejected this. Humans are social beings. The key is not solitude, but selection. One wise friend is worth more than 100 shallow acquaintances. Better a small circle of strength than a crowd of distraction. Your environment will either nourish your soul or drain it. Protecting your peace means curating your company with the same care you guard your thoughts. Because who you walk with determines where you arrive. Rule number 10, remember death daily. Of all Stoic practices, none is more misunderstood than memento mori, the reminder of death. To many, thinking of mortality feels dark, even depressing. But to the Stoics, It was the most life-giving act of self-care. For only by remembering death can we truly learn how to live. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This was not despair, it was clarity. Death is the boundary of life, and when we ignore it, we waste time. When we remember it, priorities sharpen. Think about how easily we drift through days as if they are infinite. We postpone conversations, delay goals, put off forgiveness, assuming tomorrow will come. But tomorrow is never guaranteed. The Stoics cared for themselves by confronting this truth, stripping away illusion, and asking, if life ended tonight, would I be proud of how I live today? In practice, this rule doesn't mean obsession with doom. It means gentle reminders, a skull on a desk, a line in a journal, a daily reflection. Seneca advised imagining the end of life each evening, not to create fear, but to inspire gratitude. Every sunrise becomes a gift, every meal a blessing, every embrace precious. Self-care here is not indulgence, but urgency. When you remember death, trivial insults lose power. Petty desires fade. What remains is what matters. Virtue, love, meaningful work. To waste time becomes unbearable because time is life itself. Modern culture hides death behind hospital walls, cosmetic illusions, endless entertainment. The Stoics dragged it into the open. They believe denial of death weakens us, while acceptance strengthens us. To accept mortality is to accept reality. And paradoxically, the more you meditate on death, the more alive you feel. You stop waiting to live. You start living now, fully, deliberately, courageously. That is the deepest act of self-care, to honor life by remembering its end. You just walked through 10 Stoic rules of self-care. They are not abstract ideas or intellectual decorations. They are disciplines, tools, reminders. And like any tool, they only matter if you pick them up and use them. The temptation now is to nod, to feel inspired, and then to move on. Scroll to the next video, chase the next distraction. But what good is wisdom if it gathers dust? What use are Stoic truths if they remain words on a screen instead of habits in your bones? Marcus Aurelius never wrote for an audience. His meditations were for himself, private notes to practice, not perform. That is your invitation too. Do not treat these rules as entertainment. Treat them as exercises. Begin today, begin small, begin imperfectly. Ask yourself, where can I apply rule number 1 tomorrow morning? Which friendship needs the honesty of rule number 9? Which wasted hour can I reclaim by remembering rule number 10? These are not rhetorical questions. They are choices waiting for you. The Stoics believed philosophy was not about how eloquently you speak, but how steadily you live. Your calm, your clarity, your resilience, these will be the proof. And the world needs proof more than talk. So, take one rule. Write it down. Carry it in your pocket, on your phone, in your heart. Practice it until it reshapes you. Then add another. Layer by layer, habit by habit, you will become the person these rules were designed to build. Steady, disciplined, free. And when life shakes you, as it inevitably will, you won't be scrambling for comfort. You will already have built it. Because self-care, the Stoic way, is not escape. It is strength. Don't wait. Begin now. The clock is ticking, and, as the Stoics remind us, the hours you lose, you never get back.